Today we will talk about 17 autistic details in BeamMP. Why? Well, because if you're going to tell me that you didn't want to know that the wind turbines on the ETK Test Centre map have a green gradient on the bottom of them, of which is similar to some real life wind turbines because it helps them blend into the countryside, then you're crazy. Inspired by Carmighty.
What about the little autistic details?
Everyone knows the landslide on the automation test track. However, one thing I'd never noticed until this video is that after the landslide itself, the road is gone, with no traces of where a road ever was. So why did they build this section of road? But not only this, a little free cam around the corner and we see that the water actually goes up. I don't mean a waterfall, I mean the huge river decided to climb a few meters. Although this is out of the playable map and most people would never see this. Why? As we go on, the details get more and more unknown. So with that, let's get into the third minor detail. Have you ever noticed the immersing little features such as all the ads around every map, most notably in Belasco, with all the billboards around the city advertising a variety of things from car parts to perfume? One meme we all love, and one I've covered on my channel in the past, is the fact that the Wider with its large tyres fits perfectly into the storm drain in Belasco sewer, which makes for a very satisfying effect as it spins perfectly in circles. For the last of the very well-known details, we can actually see BeamNG's signature nodes and beams logo in the engine of the spider config of the scintilla. On the fridge prop, we can see a variety of stickers, including a coffee cup, which might potentially be alluding to the fact BeamNG's development was fueled by coffee, which I can imagine to be true in their line of work.
Toma socadão, botadão, lá dentro, fica de cotão, entre vai saindo rapidão. Toma socadão, botadão, lá dentro, fica de cotão, entre vai saindo rapidão. Socadão, botadão, lá dentro, fica de cotão, entre vai saindo.
Do you know the Italian stairs, everyone throws themselves down? Well, have you ever noticed the art on the wall at the bottom of the stair? This art was either made by an incredible artist or was AI generated. I can't actually tell the difference in this one case. I do always like to try do some research so I know what I'm talking about in videos. In this case, I couldn't because I had no idea what to Google. So let me know your thoughts of why this artwork is here and why it's so high resolution compared to all the other posters in BeamMP. Let me know in the comments below. There is a small coffee shop by the dam on automation test track, which is a pretty neat detail by itself. However, when I was looking at this, deciding if I should put it in the video or not, I realised it was missing any form of entrance, no doors or anything. So it can be a very profitable business if everyone's unable to buy the coffee. Ever wondered why the buildings don't have any lights in BeamMP? Well, it's because the buildings don't have power. You may see some buildings connected to each other with power lines. However, I could not find a single building that was connected to a main power line cable. All of them cut off right before the buildings. BeamMP decided to add a bit more life to their automation test track by naming some of the corners on the main raceway. There are some I have some theories for, and some I have no idea about. The first one I'll discuss is ban hammerhead. My leading theory for this is that since it's going into a hammerhead turn, you will be banned, in quotation marks, if you fail it. Hence the ban at the start of the name. And due to the turn's difficulty, I can imagine a lot of people failing here. The next corner on my list is Caswell's Carousel. This is a corner of which has a very similar spelling and design to a corner on the Nordschleife called Karussell, which is on screen for reference. You also have corners like Adam's Apex. If I was to guess, Adam was someone important in the community, although I couldn't find any details online and don't have any theories. But as for the other corners I have no theories for, the Slingshot, Bavarian Bend, and finally Cossack Corner. Apologies for butchering the pronunciation. Also, this video took ages to make, so if you're enjoying it, a like and subscribe would be greatly appreciated. There was many billboards around the ETK Test Centre advertising a variety of car products. However, you may notice that the majority of them are in German, and paired with the castle on the hill, similar to the Nürburgring, and as Skyfall has theorised, this could add a bit more lore to the ETK Test Centre, almost suggesting it's BeamMP's version of the Nürburgring. I was looking out of bounds on a lot of maps, and the common theme for most of them It's very low poly, green textured plain with the odd hill, tree or rock. And East Coast USA is no exception to this, except this one grey moon-like island, which has a couple of trees randomly sitting on it. The reason I think this looks weirdly moon-like is due to the texture and colour, neither of which resemble a rock, and the fact there are trees on it, which also means it can't be a rock. I found this strange as it was the only map where I could see something different to the barren green wasteland, as well as it having its own island. There is a ramp by an old barn looking building in Fistello, but the weirdest part is, if you look just after the ramp, you'll see a field and a small stream. Typical Italian countryside, but doesn't that raise the question of where is the ramp going to? An empty field you'd get stuck in, or if you're really unlucky, a stream. So why is the ramp there? Do you see anything in this image? If you were normal, you probably said something like a Miramar steering wheel. However, if you're like me, you'll see a smiley face. Do you see it now? We've all drove around Belasco before, not paying much attention to the small details, such as the billboards I covered before. However, there is some larger details. The huge skyscraper in the middle of the city, to me, looks a little bit like the Shard in London. It has more exaggerated corners than the one in real life, but it has a very similar bottom and a vaguely similar design. For our penultimate detail, have you ever noticed on the TV prop, the brand is called Serif, which is a typeface, and quite creatively, the font they use to type serif is a serif font. You can tell this because of the little flicks in the words. Besides the font fact, if you manage to break the TV away from the case, or even just free cam in, you can actually see a tiny little circuit board showing the devs insane attention to detail and their love of making these tiny little font details that make me way happier than they probably should. This final fact is one I guarantee you will have never noticed, and that is the fact that on the main large bridge in Utah, you'll see yellow road markings, which you would expect on a road. However, you'd not expect them to go underneath the road, and for the majority of the road, they don't. However, there are these small patches where you can see the lines on the support pillars underneath the bridge, which is something you only notice close up in FreeCam. That brings us to the end of our journey. Thank you very much for watching. Tell me, how many of these did you know? YouTube thinks you'll like the video now on screen. See ya!